The Long Haul Podcast, America's Irish Voice. Interviews with inspiring immigrants, renowned Irish personalities, and discussions on all things Irish America. Presented by Michael Dorgan and Johnny Kennedy.
And it has just exploded. And it has been the best thing that has happened. The county, anyone that tells me that New York GAA is struggling, I have news for them.
On this week's show, I interview Joan Henchy, Chairperson of the New York GAA County Board, the first woman ever to hold that position. Joan speaks to me on a wide range of New York GAA issues: the expanding underage structure, development squads, the prospect of a senior inter-county game this year, and confirmation that New York's club championships will go ahead this summer with spectators. She chats about the GAA's new president, New York's Larry McCarthy, provides clarity on the lease arrangement of the Gaelic Park playing pitch, and updates us with the latest construction news on the new Gaelic Park Clubhouse. A video of those plans will be shown at the end of this podcast. Joan also addresses criticism that was levelled against the New York GAA by former Kerry County Board Chairman Pat the Bag O'Sullivan in an earlier Long Haul podcast, which questioned the future of Gaelic games in New York and the sustainability of clubs who rely on summer sanctions. That podcast is up online. Another hot topic we cover is the push by the New York County Board to place a financial levy or a tax on counties, clubs and the GPA who come to New York to fundraise. Joan also shoots down the possibility of an interstate USA championship and chats about the challenges to finish off last year's championships during the pandemic. Feel free to rate, review and share the podcast. This will help us get even more podcasts to you in the future. Or leave a comment on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter at The Long Haul Podcast. And be sure to keep an eye out for our New York Championship Preview podcast, which is coming up in a few weeks. Joan was born in the US but grew up in Tarbert in North Kerry, and we started off the show by discussing her formative years and her love for the GAA.
Parents lived here, I guess they immigrated in the early 60s, lived here for a number of years. They were actually quite successful. Dad actually played with Kerry in Gaelic Park and used to bartend in Gaelic Park, was his weekend shift while he worked in Goldman Sachs, and then went on to open his own bar, which was extremely well known, very popular place called the Red Mill. Many a match was made there. All that era and all that generation still talk about that particular it was a dance hall. So they had the best of bands coming out from Ireland and everything, even back then. So that's where I got started, I guess.
And were you were born here, and when did you move back home to Kerry?
I think I was about 4.
Okay.
I think I went home when I was 4. My mother regretted it to the day she died. She always said they made a mistake, but
why is that?
She always thought they should have stayed in New York, but
okay.
Saying that, then I could never have pictured her living here either. Okay. She was just very comfortable in her own skin around her own little house in her garden. So I don't know. But she'd always say it, that she was sorry. They lived down on Fordham Road. All the Irish did back then.
So you grew up in Ireland, practically.
Yeah.
You grew up in Kerry. And when did you come back to New York?
I was 17. 19. Now I'm going to give away my age, don't I? Let's just put it, I was 17.
Okay.
It was 100 years ago.
You came back when you were 17 and you stayed since?
Yeah, I remember my very first, we came out in October, and on my first St. Patrick's Day, I was just turned 18 and we were getting ID'd in the city. And it was a proud day to be able to show the ID and go, I'm legal. So that was a long time ago, but that time the drinking age was 18.
Yeah, of course. Your mom has since passed, and your father was a Fianna Fáil senator back in the day, Dan Kiley.
Yeah, gotta love him. Yeah, gotta love him. No, listen. Dad would go to the ends of the earth to help somebody, and he would do anything he could to help and make life easy for people. I have to give him a lot of credit. He was a great ambassador, especially in North Kerry, because we're a bit more rural than most. I mean, once you pass Listowel and heading towards Tralee, you're kind of forgotten about. And once you get to the Killarney and the Dingle side, you're even more forgotten about. We're very basic rural, little areas. So he was always great champion for that. Came with its challenges as a kid. It was never easy. You
Of
were
course.
Dan Kiley's daughter, or you were something, or somewhere along the line, and didn't have social media back then, but people still had mouths. So you got plenty of it.
That's why you came to New York, was it? You ran away?
To be honest with you, I didn't actually run away, but it did have its advantages because I suppose coming out, I was Dan's daughter and I didn't know where I fit in. It was kind of like it was always, and there was a stigma attached to it and trying to find my own feet. And then I got married young and had kids, and then I was somebody's wife and I was somebody's mother, and, trying to find who Joan was, I suppose. And that led me right in the door of the GAA. I suppose it was actually John Reardon, Lord Mercy, and him that dragged me kicking and screaming, I suppose, into the Kerry Football Club. I was basically told by him and Paddy O'Connor to be at the next AGM. And it just took off from there, really.
And you're like, I know you for 2 years now. For people who are tuning in for the first time, I played with Kerry Club out here, which is your club. Mm-hmm. And I know from being at training, you've a fierce love for the sport. Did you get that from your father, or where can you pinpoint that?
I think it came from being told you were a girl and there wasn't the opportunities. So if you wanted to go to a local match, it was kind of like, well, why are you going to, can you not go dancing or do something else? So I kind of had that. Plus I used to be fairly handy on the feet with the Irish dancing. So the idea of playing football or even going to football kind of, I teased Daddy all the time about it. It was like, you wouldn't let me play football. So the football boots were hidden under the dance shoes a lot of times going out the door. But I don't know. He used to have me sparring with my brother in the front yard, teaching him the skills of catching a ball, a high ball, and getting under a ball and pushing somebody off a ball. Sure, I loved it. Don't think my brother did at the time, but So I think we didn't have the opportunities to play, and growing up at home, if you went to a match, there was other reasons. You didn't go to watch the game. You were just going for the crack around, meeting people and stuff. But I actually love it.
Were you limited? So did you play when you were younger? Or because...
Yeah, we finally started a team in Tarbert. We canabled a couple of the local, the local players to train us up. Needless to say, they had patience of saints. God bless them. There was, there was one man, Eamon Hanlon. I always, when I go home, I always run into him, and he'd always say, "Shuck's sake." Put your foot under the ball. You can't pick it off the ground. How he had patience with some of us, I have no idea. But that we managed to form a team, and then before we became properly competitive, I was here.
Yeah.
But they did go on to keep a team there for a long time.
And you're involved with Kerry here for years and years, Joan. Your whole family, your husband, Brendan, your kids, everyone's involved with the club here. Tell us about, for the summers, you've all the J1ers coming over, staying, it's a real sacrifice being part of a club here, particularly where you have players coming in for the summer and you have to look after them. It's kind of an extra sacrifice that people probably at home wouldn't have the same kind of experience.
Yeah, I suppose there was always one or two that would come out that you knew by them they were more homely birds than, wanting to be put in an apartment with other lads and stuff, and they'd kind of gravitate towards you. And we always kind of provided that experience to stay here. Needless to say, it led to numerous arguments. There's nobody staying. It was said at the beginning of the year, nobody staying this year. Yeah, no problem. Then you know where you are. You wake up one morning and there's a gang. There's a house full. But people used to make tracks in the door. Back years ago, they used to everyone knew where the key was. You could be out and you just didn't know who'd be at the house by the time you got home. But it was different too, I suppose, back then. It's changed, and attitudes with some change, and I won't deny we burnt out, and shops closed. Sorry, no more. The kids moved out. That's it. Everyone's gone. It's gone. It's just Brendan, myself, and the 2 dogs now, and that's it. And we're quite content with that.
So, Joan, you worked your way up in the ranks here with the county board. You were secretary for a couple of years. We'll get on to there being elected chairperson in a second. But you did fierce work as secretary, and one of your, I suppose, one of your biggest accomplishments, I suppose, in that period was the underage and the development squads. Tell us about the development squads here. How many is there, and what kind of work you've done in the last couple of years?
Well, I suppose to debunk some of the stuff that had been said in a earlier podcast that caused a little bit of an upset with a friend or foe, I'm not really sure at this stage, from my own native county, which was a little upset over, didn't quite know the facts. We had a job to do, and I felt us as a board, and to be honest, to be transparent, to take a good long hard look at ourselves, where we belong, where we were and where we needed to be, and looking at that player coming out from home. I'm never going to deny that. It's always nice to have them coming out. They bring a lot to the table with regards standard and ability, and you're playing against people you've never played before, so there's always that comes along with it. But the reliance on them, for me, became a problem. I felt it was a huge problem, and I felt that we ourselves needed to take a good long hard look at where we were going. With the size of our youth division and the amount of players that were coming across, it didn't translate. And we had to identify why. And we needed to sit and take a good long hard look at ourselves and face the facts. We knew there was that element of kid that was going to go to college and would be out of state and may not be around till the summer. They come back, they're playing different sports, they'll come to the park for a beer with their friends, they might not play. We knew they had that, but we were only getting 25% coming through. And that was a big problem for me, to sustain ourselves. As in they were coming from
what age? As in they were going from the underage structure into the senior intermediate ranks, 25%?
Only 25%, yeah. Out of an enrollment of 2,600 kids. We were seeing 25% of it. That needed to change. The turnaround needed to happen, and it needed to happen fairly fast. So we had to take a look at where and why. And we had to address all this, the entire situation. It wasn't necessarily the young man coming out from Ireland that was taking the position on the field and leaving one of our own on a bench. We had to break the bad habit with the clubs. We had to break the bad habit with the management, the coaches. We had to break it all, and we're still doing it. That Irish player is, yes, we know he gets 11 months of football, and we technically at the time were getting maybe a very small 4 or 5 months. What could we do better? And I felt development squads were the way to go. And we sat down, Simon Gillespie, Mickey Quigg and I sat down, and we drew up a 5-year strategic plan as to what we needed to do and where we needed to be. But the first thing was to identify the need and find and identify the problem area and where we could fix it from there. And it has just exploded. And it has been the best thing that has happened the county with regards bringing them through. As now there's no such thing as, I'm not going to bother going, this fella's going to come out from Ireland, he's going to take my place, I've no worth or anything here, I'm just going to blow off the summer, hang out with my buddies on the beach. That's all gone. Now it's the other way around, and it's good for us.
So what exactly happened, Joan? You came up with a few development squads for players within a certain age bracket, was it? And that they were to be, do they play colleges then, or who were they playing that you were able to develop?
Well, what we did was we started the development squad first with 17 plus. So it was 17 to 22, 23. I mean, if a young man wanted to come in at 24, we didn't stop. And right from the get-go, there was no cut. There was no such thing as you're cut if you don't do it. But there was a list of criteria required from the player. So it was dedication, respect, commitment, everything we give you had to take back to your club. We never crossed into the club. So we do all of these development trainings when the clubs are not playing, so that there is no time away from the club. No player can use the excuse that he's got New York County development training over club training. You go to your club. Your club is first. And then we started putting together little curtain raisers before the May game, the county game, the senior county game.
These are all American-born kids, aren't
all
they?
American-born kids, every one of them. And from there, the football took off. Then hurling took off. Camogie development took off. The minor board now have a U17, a U15 development, and the ladies have started up a new development as well, and we still have the camogie as well. So it's just it was there. It was just a matter of just tapping in and just embracing it, and just telling them, look, we have competition for you. You need to look, who's going to represent your county better than an American board, New York board kid? Nobody. It's like you're from Cork, I'm from Kerry. The grass to our own counties. Yeah, it is. It's the same for them. That jersey means the world to them, and they want that jersey. You could put Colm Cooper into Gaelic Park, or Dermot Connolly, or anybody else into Gaelic Park, and the kids would be like, okay, well, right. Put Shane Hogan in, and it's like, they relate. He's our county star in their eye. And don't get me wrong, they know who they all are, but they relate to him. He put on the New York jersey. That's who they want to be.
And I think that really came to when St. Barnabas won the county final. It meant it was all the hard work seemed to be justified at that moment.
It was, and to be fair, Sligo are an outrageous club. They're an outstanding club. I've utmost respect for the way they set up and how they conduct their business, and the players are a credit to their club, and everyone that works in that club are genuinely good, hard-working people. But from a development side, and to drive home everything that we've been doing, it was never more evident than it was last year. You had a pandemic, you were shut down, you had no social life, you had no outlet of any sort, you gravitated back towards your game. There was no Irish people coming out from home. There was nobody going on vacation. And it was a time to really just capture. And we did. And we managed to just, I suppose, even people that just, the whole GAA grab all association, or, whatever. I think they finally realized that that's possibly the furthest thing from the truth. I think we give an awful lot more than people see, and I think they realized it last summer, I think, more than ever, and they realized the importance of the game, the culture, just the community spirit, and just being able to go and have human contact and just sit and have the crack and watch a game of football. And honestly, we sat there, I thought it was never going to happen, to be honest, and there was days I sat there and I was like, I'd give anything to see a really, 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 really bad Junior C game. Yeah. Like anything, just because you missed it that much. So there's a whole host of things, and I think more than anything, our players really needed it, and they needed that outlet. And I think a lot of them came back to the family, and realized, your Saturday night crack out and blowing off a Sunday match, the attitude changed. I think they realized how much the club's work was, how important your club was as a family, and more importantly, how important the entire GAA community was. So it really came home.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about the GAA there, and how the kids look up to the older fellas like the Hogans, I was there on the day. The passion with the players was something. There was no different than the passion at home after a county finals that I've been at. Kids were running onto the pitch. They were their idols. They were looking up to the senior players, and it was the exact same. And sometimes it's kind of hard to envisage that you have a group of young American-born lads. Like, how do they have that GAA for the sport? But they do.
Oh, and you will not tell them that they cannot do something. You will not tell them. They will prove you wrong time and time and time again. They keep me on my toes. There was this. I don't mind if you'd allow me to share a story, and if I get weepy, please forgive. one particular day during lockdown, Brendan and I took a drive down to Gaelic Park. We had been getting word that local kids, I guess, had been breaking in, and everything was on lockdown. College was out, we were out, and then obviously, local kids, no more than our own kids, looking for an outlet, going in, but damage is done when there isn't eyes on things. And so we took a spin down, and for some reason my key wouldn't open the lock on the front gate. So I was like, what the hell, did the college change the key here? Did somebody do something? But it had just been from not being used and just needed a drop of oil, really. So I opened the construction site gate and I was coming in that way, and I was like, yeah, there's a handful of kids in here for sure. I said, how am I going to get in and run them out now before the college calls security or the 5-0 turn up or whoever? And I was getting steamed, at the idea, like, how did they get in? Every entrance, exits, all locked tight. I mean, it's padlocked. I couldn't figure it out. So I said, right, let me try my key again. And as I was going back out, I caught a gap that I was able to see clearly into the pitch. And I'm thinking, yeah, they're kids, all right. Local kids, they're our kids. And I managed to get the gate opened. And I watched when I was going in, they didn't realize I was there. And I watched how they were going out. So anyway, I got in the car and we drove to the top of the hill. And here comes 10 young lads into 2 cars, and the heads were going and they were bobbing and super cool and whatnot. And I'm standing hand on hips, and all you can see is the faces going, ooh, uh-oh, we're in trouble, she's here. So I just said to them, lads, what are you doing? Like, we're in a complete lockdown here, and you're on private property. Somebody could have called and made a phone call. Why didn't you call me? If you really needed to get in, I might have been able to figure out where I could have had 4 or 5 of you, and we weren't breaking any of the regulations that were put in place. And 2 heads just dropped and the tears welled up, and they just looked and they were like, we did not know where else to go. We just needed to come home. And it was just about what was normal for them, what was comfortable for them, what they considered to be home, safe, secure, security blanket. Yeah. It's where they wanted to be. And they had an O'Neill's with them, and all they were doing was kicking a ball around. And it broke my heart to get into the car, and I cried the whole way home. All they wanted was that. So I felt we had an obligation to do everything we could last year to try and get some kind of a competition going.
How old were they, Joan?
They were part of our development squads. They were 17, 18 up, maybe a little older, maybe 19, you know. But you could just see that the uncertainness of everything was starting to get to them, and we were only maybe a month, maybe 5 weeks into the 2-week lockdown. So that just kind of resonated with me for the rest of the year, and it kind of drove us on a little bit more than this year as well with our squads.
Okay, just get back to the development squads. How many of them are there, and how many kids do you have in underage across the whole minor board? How many kids are there playing either hurling or football under the?
I believe we've record numbers of registrations this year, over any year. I'm going to say about 2,600 kids registered in underage.
Okay.
Right now, I believe the minor board have 2 development at football. They have a hurling. I think there's 2. There's a hurling academy and a development squad. The ladies have, Gaelic for girls have, and then we have 2 as well. Okay. So we've football and hurling.
And who do the development squads? Who do they play against? What do they do? They're training together. Are they playing against other colleges? And I know they went to the World Games. So how do you develop the development squads?
Okay, so prior to this mess, we had the World Games, which we'd be prepping for. We had we'd be taking games from senior teams in Philadelphia, curtain raisers. We'd be going to the college, the university games, the college competitions at home. So there was a lot to do, and the times don't always suit, because the college would be February into March, or last week of February, start of March. The World Games was usually bang in the middle of the summer, often clashes with our CYCs, and then of course obviously the minor board are involved with the Féiles, football and hurling as well. So extremely busy. So this year, will we get a game at county level? It's very doubtful. Doesn't look promising at all. The realization that, you know, they're not opening at home, and the further it gets pushed out, the chances of New York or London, I'd say, being even included in it will be slim again this year. And it's hard with 2 years in a trot, you know, to lose that. So the momentum, it's hard to keep that up. The only good news is we're after getting into the junior All-Ireland, which is a huge boost. So that's what we're doing with them now. That's what they're looking for. That's what they're working for. And they're going to start. They've already put in a good 8 weeks of hard graph now already, gone into the development, and getting a head start on the fall, so that we'll start working on them from there with them again.
Perfect. I'll come back to that in a second. I just want to go, so you were secretary for a couple of years. When did that plan go into place? So was it about 6 years ago, a 5-year plan? Or
it would have been 6.5 years, yeah, 6.5 years.
So you completed that, and then you went for county chair. Of course, you were the first ever female chairperson, or can we say that? Which were the first ever woman to be chair of New York County Board.
You can say that.
You shattered a glass ceiling here in that respect. Does that weigh heavy on you, or how much of an impact does that have on you personally, becoming chair and becoming the first woman chair? Does it?
I think the chair alone is daunting, to say the least. Anybody who puts their name forward for it doesn't do it nilly-willy, for sure.
Yeah.
I won't play the female card. I never have. I never will. You have to do the work. You have to just put in the time. You have to do the work. You can't rest on laurels. You can't play the card. Are there challenges? Absolutely. Has there been things said that may be inappropriate? Absolutely. Unfortunately, you do get things said at times that may be, inappropriate. But there's a big difference between, in my book, there's a big difference between old boys versus totally wrong. And I think you have to know which is which, unfortunately.
And I've known you, Joan. I know you're tougher than a lot of men out there. So
that's because of ye.
There's no bother with you. So, Joan, you took over the chairpersonship. I suppose you had plans for the next 5 years, and bang, struck with COVID last year. One of the things was, I suppose, progress with the development squads. The second thing was, like, I suppose last year, talk us through last year, just to get the championship played was a feat in itself.
Yeah, I mean, needless to say, we didn't know. And every day the information was changing. You didn't know what you were dealing with. You didn't know, was this just a flu? What was the seriousness of it? Was it as bad as they said it was? Then you see country after country shutting down. And when you see New York shutting down, you know something is not right. It really was daunting. We didn't know whether or not we were going to get games going. And then I suppose we're fortunate in one sense. We don't actually fall into a category. We're not really recognized by the state as a sports. We're cultural. So we're very much a recreational, cultural sport. I mean, to us, you wouldn't dare tell somebody who's Irish that we don't have a category, because we won't be long telling you otherwise. But with regards the state, it was different. So, and we have a private facility, so we were very much able to control ourselves and try and work with the guidelines that were being laid out. Now, they didn't come easy. There was a lot of challenges. There was a lot of thought process, but I didn't do it on my own. And I made a concerted decision to include not just management, but also CCC into the plans, because we were given executive powers, I suppose, to without breaking rules as such, but maybe modify for the year that was in it. and how we could go about doing that legally to a point, without it causing problems, we'll say, for a normal year, and being definitive in what we were doing, that this was solely 2020. Luckily, nothing had to be modified to the point that it caused any concerns. I mean, look, the modifications were, there's no dressing rooms. I don't want to see anyone with a water bottle. Your masks were on, players came tagged, you stayed on your own 50. You didn't encroach in another team's
dugout
lines. Your players stayed in their own, they padded out, that sort of stuff. And there was a lot of positives actually to take away from it. It worked really well. I think our referees are delighted. All our games started on time this year, and the punter couldn't believe that they came in at 6:30 and the games were being thrown up, which was really good, because that kick around warm up before the chat in the dressing room, and then the jerseys are on, and then there's another warm up, and then your game is 20 minutes late starting, and then you have the next team coming in screaming, and it'll be 11 o'clock before they get home. That there was that. Obviously, the concern, there was no sanctions, there was no summer players. How many teams would actually survive without them?
Yeah.
And I'm absolutely buzzing. We had 5 teams didn't field in total.
Okay.
Which was unbelievable. Out of what we have, I mean, we've 46, 47 teams. So out of that amount of teams, a very, very tiny percentage couldn't do it. And again, no disrespect to those clubs, but work is needed, and they themselves have to be accountable for their own survival. We can only do so much, but if you're relying on players coming out all the time and something like this happens, you realize the importance of what we've been doing here for the last 6 years.
Yeah. So do you think the setup here now, Joan, particularly with the senior, is going to change going forward because of last year, because there were no sanctions coming in? We were involved in Kerry, obviously, and do you want to speak about why they took a step back? It was in relation to that, wasn't it, the reliance of sanctions coming in and having to deal with them, having to put them up, and you wanted to focus on, Kerry decided to focus on home-based players before COVID hit.
So just to jump in here, Kerry Club New York had 2 teams, a senior team and a junior team, but were relying heavily on summer sanctions to make up the numbers for senior. They decided to withdraw from senior championship last year and field just 1 junior A team in order to rebuild the club around New York-based players. The aim was to win the junior A championship, get promoted to intermediate, and then hopefully win the intermediate championship, which would give them promotion back to senior and ultimately regain their senior status. Kerry won the Junior A championship last year, and because it proved so successful, Kerry will field an intermediate team this year because of promotion, as well as a new Junior B team.
I think from our own club, we had 2 teams, but it was about 1 team, not a club. And it was about our seniors all the time. And you could see that in our juniors. And they were the backbone of the club. They weren't your elite player, but they were your hard graft. They were the lad that turned up.
Yeah.
Whenever you needed anything, if you were stuck and someone couldn't make, they were the ones that were willing to give up their junior status to come up and sit on the bench to be pulled off for 15 minutes to help you get over a line. That's what your club is about. And I just felt we threw the kitchen sink at it the year before.
With Kerry.
Yeah, we threw the kitchen sink at that championship the year before, and it did not work. I was exhausted. I was also looking at the chair. I was also looking at, I had been so involved in that club. I needed people to step up, but everybody was afraid of the pressure. And we talked to the players, and we called them in, and we asked them, you yourself were there, and we just said we felt that the club was no longer, that it was too individualized, and that we needed to rein it back and work on building a base, and we did. And we have 2 teams this year.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said for it. The lads went out; they came out of the woodwork. We put in a junior B team this year. Now there'll be a few of them needing a defib by the end of the game, but if they get a 10-minute run, there's a few of them haven't kicked the ball in a while. But you know what? That's what the club's about.
Yeah.
We want everyone to enjoy it too. You take it serious when you need to, but you need to be a club, and you just have to, build. Yeah.
So do you think that this is going to replicate our other senior clubs looking at that? And I think going back to our earlier comment about debunking myths and stuff, I think that when Pat O'Sullivan was making the point that time on the podcast, he was saying that that there's no kind of bricks and mortar clubs, or there's no community clubs like the Shannon Gales, so that you can build the club up like a Shannon Gales.
Well, with all due respect, when you have somebody saying that, and would be very fast to hand over a number to a lad, to come out, and would have no hesitation either in making sure that they were all looked after. So, like I said, we won't go there with it.
What I get at, Joan, is that you don't have any, like, the clubs are relying on this.
A lot of the clubs weren't, though, Michael. Okay. A lot of them weren't. I think majority of them were because there was none at Junior B. There's no sanctions at all. Junior A, there was 2 players. I had 2 players not making or breaking. We had cut. To be fair to New York, and this is why I was probably upset over that, was we had cut our reliance as a county down to minimal amounts of sanctions. Like I can tell you, some years ago there was like 8 sanctions, and it was per team. So that was 16 sanctions that Kerry would have gotten back in the day. Then that was dropped again. So I think New York has done an awful lot of work, and that's one of the reasons I think an awful lot of us were very, very upset over some of those statements regarding bricks and mortar, because Barnabas is a bricks and mortar, Rangers was a bricks and mortar, St. Ray's, to be fair to a lot of the clubs, and they all have Irish lads playing for them, so they're not just, there was a nice, and there was Irishmen started those clubs, so the majority of the teams were down, like there was only 4 sanctions at senior for the last number of years, and then it was 3 at intermediate, 2 at junior, so we weren't even in total less than 2 sanctions per county coming out from Ireland. So when you look at it, that's what it would break down at. Were the clubs, if I was bringing Tommy Joe, somebody else was bringing Mickey Joe, because he might be a better player. So was there rivalry on that? Yeah, and that became a problem, because you could see that like a club would get a really good, solid, hard-working senior footballer, club player, and then next one would bring, an inter-county, maybe under 21. Next club is bringing a senior inter-county player, and that became a problem for the clubs, no question. But I mean, our dependency on players coming out the last number of years has definitely diminished. I mean, 4 players is not enough anymore, but you always had the transfer coming out as well. And they're always great, because that's a lad that's transferring out here, and he's going to be staying, and he's going to be living in the county and stuff. But even those 4 players were causing too much of a financial strain on clubs. And I think a lot of them realised it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
It's not, and financially it's not sustainable. And bringing a sanctioned player out here right now, I don't know where you'd even go about trying to accommodate them, even work. So it was. I think it was more the financial sustainability of that,
of course,
more so than anything else. And again, you have 4 lads coming out from home. Yes, 4 lads are sitting down. There is no question on that. But those are choices clubs make at the end. But like I said, from Kerry's perspective, we decided enough was enough with it, and we weren't going to do sanctions, and we just couldn't compete anymore. And financially, we were out of the game.
Okay.
We felt we'd put the money back into the club and into our own lads here rather than.
I think that was the point that was kind of being made, and we'll agree to disagree and move on. But I think that the point was that there was bars pumping money into these, looking after players, and you're like, geez, it really should be pumped into the clubs, like.
But it was being too, and that didn't come across, So, and I'm leaving it at that.
So this year, Joan, you're planning ahead. We're full speed ahead for championship. You can confirm that championship is going to go ahead again this year?
We have 12 teams in Junior B. We have a new season, a new division, novice. 4 new teams in there, very much novice. which is where they belong to start out with. Let them get their feet wet, let our development officers, our Simon and Mickey, get a handle on them, give them a hand on rebuilding and structuring and getting their coaching
Fantastic.
and whatever needs to be done there, and giving them, and let them compete at that level, so there's no blowouts, because there's nothing worse than putting a young team out in the field and coming up against seed one and getting blown out first game. Doesn't really send the right message. So you've 4 there.
4 brand new junior B teams, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Novice. Forget junior B. We teams all over the place. Anyone that tells me that New York GAA is struggling, I have news for them. We have.
So what do you mean by novice? Are they playing each other? Is it the 4 of them will play?
There's 4 teams in a novice championship. Yeah.
So
they'll
like
do a double
junior
round.
C, kind of a junior C, like, is all fantastic.
Yeah. So, and we didn't want to call it junior C. We don't want to be, belittling the situation, and they would be very novice-y. So. And
they're looking for players. I hear they're looking for anyone to come on board.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, everybody is kind of like, come on back. Nobody's taking themselves super serious. So in junior B this year, we have, in addition to last year, Kerry have a junior B. Waterford started up a brand new football club. NYPD stayed, which was really good. We have a Clare hurling team. Rockland have another team back in, and Donovan Ross have put in a B team. I knew I had a few teams there. And then Clare have revived back at hurling, junior hurling, which is brilliant. So 10 teams at junior A.
Fantastic.
6 and 6 then at intermediate and senior. And I mean, obviously the push is on to get everybody up into intermediate and senior, which is the most important thing now.
And so what's the hurling looking like?
8 teams, 4 and 4. Yeah, so quite content. Tipperary have a second team back this year again. Brilliant. So Tipperary, senior, junior. Then you have Limerick, Limerick, keep an eye on Limerick. Limerick are coming. Take it from me. Limerick are 95% All-American. Most of them are on the development squad. So I'm really excited to see how well they go. They really have. I mean, look, hurling's not easy for anybody.
Yeah.
You either have it or you don't have it. It's not something that, it doesn't come as easy as football. So there is a lot more work goes into the development of it. But Conor Higgins has been brilliant, Toby Kavanagh, obviously Mickey Quigg, Richie Hartnett is the chairman of the hurling division. Couldn't ask for a better bunch of young, enthusiastic, cool, managers and coaches and trainers, and the kids just totally relate to them. And I'll call them kids till they're 50 because they're all my kids. But so we've been getting numbers of 26 to 30 lads turning out once a week for that. Okay. So that Limerick hurling team is definitely going to explode at some stage. So
are you seeing a net increase in players this year with those new teams? Fantastic. What do you think that's down to, Joan? Do you think more people, what's the reason for it? Do you know, can you put your finger on it?
It's free.
Well, I suppose because you think it's really the pandemic, people looking to get out. Yeah. 2,
the socialization.
Yeah.
The structure of it. I think just the club aspect. Family. More than anything, family. It's just everybody networking again. We have gotten away, I suppose. People came out here years ago and it was like Gaelic Park, network. Then you could kind of get the same network in a bar nearly, But when all that went away, there was only one thing left. And it doesn't cost the player anything. Time. It's not costing him a penny of insurance. The clubs pay it and the board pay it. We do things different than home. So the clubs pay their share, the board picks up the balance of it. What's it costing them? Pair of boots, a bit of time, but look what they get out of it, So
you're going to have league kicking off next month, Joan, is it? And then championship proper, when will that happen, May?
Junior B championship proper starts next month. Because of the number of teams we have. We've 72 games in Junior B alone.
I hope you referees.
You're on standby. So 72 games in Junior B. So a league was not possible there, or the championship wouldn't be finished till this time next year. And then obviously we have to take into consideration we're always going to get that thunderstorm.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
And COVID's not gone. So all of that has to be taken and factored in again this year with regards dates, finals.
Will we have spectators this year, or
Yeah.
what? There would be spectators. And just touch on last year, Joan, the streaming was, of course, forced in the end because of COVID, but it proved very successful, I imagine. So I was looking at the reactions all around the world. It was a great way of expanding the audience, wasn't it?
It was. And again, I suppose the fact that we had games going on at that level where the rest of the diaspora around the world didn't have.
Yeah.
So it was something for them to watch. And I don't know if there's any Irish person anywhere in the world that doesn't have some connection to New York. There's some, whether they lived here, visited here, family here, friends here, whatever it is, there's some connection here. And I think most people just love New York in general anyway. But the streaming was, and the quality was excellent. I have to say, I watched them. I didn't enjoy the games on the day. I got to watch them back afterwards. They were a lot less stressful to watch the day after. But it was great. We'll probably do it again this year, depending on how things go. But again, we're a private facility. Right now it's at 50%. We're outdoor.
And you're in the city boundaries, so the people, yeah.
Yeah. So, and we're, look, people, the park can hold 8,000 people.
8, is it? Okay.
Yeah. Between, we'll say the bar, restaurant and the benches and stuff, it's upwards of that. I mean, now, wouldn't you love if you had that kind of a crowd, but that's not going to be happening anytime too soon. Yeah. But, just having a couple of hundred people in there, the stands hold 4,000 people legally. Yeah. So we know we know ourselves. So I'm not even. And
so what the only thing we're going to be missing is the sanctions again this year. But of course, with that, it comes opportunity for fellas who are living out here to just, it's going to be the same squad throughout the year.
I wouldn't go so far as to say they mightn't be here. We never changed our rule. I think you might see a few.
Okay.
However, I think you'll see sanctions in the form of young men who were maybe born here like me and are coming back out on a US passport.
All right,
that's what I could see.
Okay.
But as regards visas, I can't. I mean, you and I both know that they were supposed to, the visa ban was only supposed to be until April 1st, which is around the corner. And the countries that rely on those visas are still in level 4 and 5 lockdown.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that those are going to be opened up anytime soon.
We are so lucky after this time last year with the epicenter of the epicenter and for it to go ahead last year. And I know from Cork, there's still my own club Nemo are waiting to play last year's county final. And here we are in New York getting ready for championship next month. So we're very lucky.
Would you believe we did from U8 or what's it now, U7, all the way right through. Not missed a game. I mean, did we have a couple of hiccups along the way? Luckily for us, we had only 2 reported cases. But that's the difference, as you know, from living here. We test on a regular basis here. We're required to test. We've no choice but to test, be it for work or whatever it is. Testing was kind of done on a regular basis. So it was easy to kind of find a case more so than having a cluster. So we got very lucky, no cluster. We had 2 individual reported cases, and that was it. So we got super lucky.
Very good.
I think they're all immune at this stage.
So as well, Joan, you touched on it a second ago. There's going to be a junior team going forward to play intercounty, and of course the senior game, it might go ahead, it might not go ahead. The senior game, of course, is a huge, it's kind of like the pinnacle of the year here. It's where you get most people. It's an awful loss to have it 2 years in a row. It may go ahead. Did you form any team this year?
I put some stuff in place, but there wouldn't be a team traveling here.
Yeah.
So, we're prepared to pull things together if we need to pull things together, if we're given the go ahead that we can travel. I mean, look, you know that the rollout of the vaccine here has been very successful in New York. In comparison, I not even familiar with the other states, but I mean, I have to say it's becoming increasingly easy to get a vaccine now. So I would hope that, in the next 6 to 8 weeks, anyone who wants to have it will have it. I genuinely can't see. There's been no definitive decision made on it. I would be delighted if we did. I mean, we'll travel. We're not afraid to travel. But I think realistically, it most likely would be next year for us. And that will be with both teams. And please God, that one of the 3 motions that are on the agenda for special Congress, that the Tier 2 will go ahead, and the Tintown Cup will go, Talton Cup will go ahead, and we'll be playing in a competition where it'll be at our own level and we can work from there. I mean, I love the Connacht Championship. We love that day. It's a huge day for, again, diaspora. It's a great day for meet and greet. People come from everywhere. But coming up against Mayo, you're talking top tier team, and Galway, it's tough. It is tough. Yeah. And the work we're doing, we're competitive against Sligo. We're competitive against Leitrim. We've always done really good against Roscommon. I don't know, even though they're a division ahead of us, maybe even 2 divisions ahead of us, we've always had a really good competition against them and stuff. But I mean, realistically, Mayo and Galway are just that little bit outside the reach at the moment. So, getting into a Tier 2 where we're playing against the same level of player and the same standard and stuff can only benefit us.
So are you saying that New York will not go into the Connacht Championship? They'll go straight into the Tier? Or
No, the Connacht Championship is still in play. I think that'll be, and then
possibly if they lose, they go into the.
From what I understand, that's something we'll decide on. I mean, I don't think anybody in New York wants to part with Connacht Championship. But the great thing about the other competition would be we'd get an away and a home. So you'd have another team coming here too. If you won your game at home, next game is on your turf. So it's an away and a home game. So, that's also something to look at as well. And that's just the senior competition.
So would you play your first senior Connacht Championship game at home? Will that remain
they don't know yet.
Okay.
That structure hasn't been.
Nothing has been decided. No. So what are you the county board looking to have? What are you proposing that you go?
I mean, like I said, we if we get into the whichever of the 3 motions that are on the table, let's pass and look at it. New York is involved in all 3 motions. It depends on whether or not the provincials will stay the way we know them. As to whether or not we're going to be, and we won't have the final say in that. That's going to be a Congress decision. So I don't want to speculate on how that goes. But listen, we'll play. We don't mind as long as we get a game home here in New York. Yeah, we'll travel to the ends of the world for the next one. We don't mind.
And tell me about the new motion for the junior team that's going to be passed. And of course, I won't be able to play because I'm not born here, Joan. I was looking forward.
Tough there. Sorry, sir.
I'll still hold out for senior.
You'll be all right at senior. We'll get you water boy or something. You'll be grand.
I could play in
goal. You could do goals, actually. Yes, you could. No, I have to say, Larry McCarthy had done a little bit of homework on this as well on our behalf. I think the junior championship, as we knew it, was. I don't know, did it have wasn't getting enough of notoriety, I suppose, for the want of a better word. And I think the initial structure about development and counties developing didn't work out as well as it should have. I mean, look, Kerry won 5 in a row on that one. I don't know that's, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, All Ireland's or All Ireland's, doesn't matter. But I think for the weaker counties, and then I don't think there was much of an appetite. So as opposed to just scrapping that competition, they had come back with a proposal that, they start with a weekend competition. So it's the British University winner, the runner-up, Kilkenny, New York to start with. It's 2 semi-finals and a final. It is in All-Ireland. It'll be over the course of a weekend. And I think the intention with it is that as you go forward, you could have USGA in there, and you would have Europe or Australasia or somebody else putting in a team, and it would be for the right reasons, for the development of the game and for the broader GAA community outside of the island.
And they would be a home-based New York junior team, would it?
Yeah. Okay, so let me just get this correct and right so that there is nobody going to come back afterwards and say it. You must have come through the youth division, period.
Okay.
Now, the rule is different in the rule book. It's you must be US born. New York has a mandate. You must have come through the youth division. There is not much point doing that when somebody like me could walk up with an American passport.
Okay.
Yeah. So you come through the youth division, for all the right reasons.
Okay,
yeah.
Fantastic.
So I won't have people screaming at me that they weren't allowed tryout. If you didn't come through the minor board, you're not coming on the team.
You mentioned Larry McCarthy there, of course, in New York. He's the new Uachtaráin, the new president of the GAA. Have you been in touch with Larry over the last couple of months? And I suppose the question we want to know here is, will his role give us an edge here in New York?
Look, at Larry's a great man. New York is always, it's difficult to, the challenges he has. I can't even begin to get my head around them. I said, God's definitely weren't looking down on him or me. It all happened in the same year, but no, in fairness to Larry, he's very smart. He's got a great head on his shoulders. I've no doubt he will lead accordingly. And needless to say, look, he's surrounded by amazing individuals as well in Dublin. And John Horn will always be on the other end of a phone as well to guide and stuff. And again, goes back to the word I've been used, and I throw it around a lot, was that whole family too. Everybody is pulling in the right direction there. It's not like anybody is, you should do it this way or do it that way. Everybody wants the games opened and stuff and get things going back to normal. The challenges he has to climb are just horrific, but he's calm. Anyone that knows Larry doesn't get carried away. He'd always said to me, settle, take a breath, settle. And that's, but he does, he takes that breath, it's hard to put into words how to describe him. I always found him to be he's a very straight man. There's no BS with him. He's straight as a dime. You might like it, but you'll respect it. Believe me, we had our battles down through the years when he was in chair as well, but they were good battles. There was they were always just, basically, I would have been a delegate defending my club for whatever reason, or might have disagreed with something. But he never, there was never any animosity with that. There was never nothing was ever personal. Did your job, moved out, you could have a drink 5 minutes later. And I find him very easy to work with, and he's approachable, but I think he has a really good grasp of the struggles of clubs. I think he saw that here, and I think he sees that here. And it's I know at home you've got the rural side of things, and maybe the lack of players coming through. But we had that here too for a while, and trying to hold on. And I think he relates to that. And I think he really can resonate with and understand the club need at home, more importantly. And I think it's good. I think he's the right man to highlight. And I think the split season is ideal. I think it's really good to give the clubs back what they need. They do need it, because they're the backbone of the entire organisation, and without a doubt. There's no question.
Yeah, the clubs need a break. I played for years, and it's all year long, and you can't plan anything. And it's just really, it becomes more than it does take a certain element of the enjoyment out of it. So hopefully that'll be a remedy to the situation.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it myself there. I have a friend at home, and he's from my own club, and just like 11 and a half months of the year, and you do one thing, have one bad game at intercounty, and you're ripped apart. You're not allowed a life. You give up your family. Yeah. You give up a social life. You give up any type of normalcy for the love of a game. And where do you wind up? Always back with your club.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, I would be an advocate myself for the clubs.
I never minded playing all year round, but it was the unknown and not being able to plan 2 weeks ahead was madness. Do you think Larry will shine a light on the clubs outside of Ireland more? Do you think that he'll...
I think that actually has been done, to be fair. I think there's a really good pathway to that. His predecessor was brilliant. His predecessor. So we've had a phenomenal, like I can go back to Nicky Brennan, Sean Kelly, and everybody on from there. We've always had a really, really good, strong connection with Dublin. They've always had a very positive attitude about New York, and particularly the growth of the GAA outside of the island. So I mean, we're all over the world now. I mean, there isn't a corner of the world that there isn't some football or hurl or camogue being played. So we actually now have half of it was passed at Congress. We have a World GAA constitution. So you know, we meet on a regular basis now, which is very important because we know what we need, and each of the units outside, it doesn't necessarily, clubs at home or counties at home wouldn't quite grasp some of the constraints that we have and the challenges that we have as well. So trying to fit some of that stuff and make it fit. Sometimes it's like putting a square peg in a round hole, you know, it just doesn't fit. So having that World GAA committee now in place, there'll be a new chairperson appointed to that. We have our own little constitution as well. We're still governed, you know, but it's just, if there was something regarding, we can actually, as a World GAA committee outside of our own unit, I mean, we still are an independent county at Congress and all the rest of it, but we can put in a motion to Congress now as a World GAA that would work, you know, which is very important to be able to do that because it carries obviously a lot more strength, and trying to explain, you know, trying to get up on the floor and trying to pass a motion. This will come in from that group, which is really good. But we have fantastic workshops.
And is this a new entity? Is it, Joan? Was this
the World GAA has been going on for years and years. Like I said, it was, I can't even remember who put it in place first, but I mean, I've been attending World GAA meetings for, I'm going to say nearly 10 years, maybe more.
And is it out of that the World Games came about through that? Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so it's been the World Games is, if we get an opportunity, I think it's 2024 now because of COVID.
All right, okay.
It should be next year.
Can I play now?
You can actually, yeah, because we'll be taking an expats team home in it. We'll get you in there. We'll bring you for that one.
I was just going to say the loss of the Mayo game, or I say the Mayo game because they're the last team here, but the loss of the home
Galway
game every year, the Galway game, that is a bit like, naturally had a big impact on the coffers, did it? Does this?
Yeah, look, I mean, it's our biggest payday of the year. I mean, it pays a chunk of our bills for the year. There's no getting around that. Needless to say, the financial issues are no different from they are at home.
Yeah,
you know, there's no question. We'll feel it as well, but we're very resilient in this town. I think New Yorkers will come. The one thing I've always found here is if you're taking a team home, for a championship, they're all in. They're all in.
Yeah.
The pride just booms out of it. You saw it in that final. It didn't matter. You had as many people shouting for Sligo as you had for Barnabas. You had neutrals that were in because obviously the local kid was on that team, or you know, you had a local team made up of kids that they all knew. they will support, and I've no doubt the Irish community here will support us, and they will back us 101% when it comes time to doing that.
It was it was just a fantastic day. I think it was a boost for everyone, no matter just because of the pandemic, but it was just kind of reinforced about the work that you were doing underage and how lads born here can compete at the very top.
I can tell you, I have blanks. A lot of that day is blank. I can tell you blank. My nerves were beside myself. I was beside myself.
We'll just walk you up and don't give me out to people so you didn't miss out.
Put your mask on. Put your mask on. Do not get me shut down. Put your mask on. Yeah, I was called a lot of names that day. But you know what? I like one man gave me an awful hard time about it, and I was like, look, it's a small ask. Put it on until you get to your seat. Take it off. You get up. You want to go to the bar? Put it on. You want to use the bathroom? Put it on. It's not a big ask. So I think at one stage he passed me and he had chocolate bar in his mouth so that he didn't have to put the mask up. And I think the next time he passed me the cup of tea. And I think the third time he just looked and he didn't have anything. He was trying to pull it up. And I was like, could you not just for a second? I don't, and please people don't take this wrong. I don't care if you don't want to wear the mask. I don't care. I'm telling you, to be in Gaelic Park, you will wear it, because if you don't and you expose our players, that's them not available to play. That's their club down. That's their opposing team down. And that is you sitting at home for 2 weeks waiting to spend your $5 again because you were responsible for exposing those people. And my job was to protect our players. And if you couldn't abide by that, then sorry.
Okay. Is the rule wear it when you go in, and once you take your seat, you can take it off?
Yeah, same as in a restaurant. Same. Just take it off. Just moving around, because look, you don't know. And I just don't need the players. I mean, the players, health and safety of our players is paramount for me. And our volunteers, more importantly.
Joan, one of the things we brought up in this podcast before was the a possible, and I've spoken to you before, you're going to shoot me down out straight away, but a USA championship that would that's something like that, where the New York county team would play a Philadelphia or go to Chicago, and then they'd go into the All-Ireland. Tell me the problems with that and why that wouldn't happen.
Well, we're two different counties. We have two different jurisdictions for a start. I mean, USGA we've three states. They've got the rest of them, so it doesn't work. The season doesn't work. We're a county board on our, they are as well to a point, but they're I don't even know how to word this right. For them to pull a USGA team together would be very difficult, because you've got Boston and Chicago, Philadelphia, it's not, and then the standard is slightly different as well. I mean, if you were taking on Boston, New York taking on a selection of Boston, then there'd be no sanctions allowed there.
What do you mean?
They got USGA, I think something like 11 sanctions.
So the Boston would be relying on their sanctions to form a team.
Well, now listen, they're making huge strides as well. I mean, their dependency is lessening as well. But when God love them, they got no games last year. But no, it won't work. It was tried in the past. There's too many difficulties trying to get it with their championship playoffs are the end of August. Ours could be in the middle of a championship, and then trying to put a New York team together. And then we've tried to get games going in the past, like in October, New York versus Boston and so on and so forth. They don't always work out so well.
No, this would be an intercounty playoff preceding the game in May that you'd go do a little, you might play Chicago or Boston, and then the winner will go into the Connacht Championship in May. That you'd play the teams in February, March, and then my thinking behind it was you'd give a bit of exposure to who was on the New York team this year, and then you'd you're kind of building a following of the New York team. And
well, if you can find, I'll tell you what, so I'll just put it like this to you. If you can find someplace in Boston, someplace in Chicago, and someplace in New York in February to play a football match, let me know.
All right, we're putting the call out there.
Yeah, if Chicago will be minus 20 degrees, Boston will be under snow, and so will New York.
Okay.
So yeah, no, listen, it never worked. Listen, we've tried to do. We've always gotten really good games. We've gotten some really good games between Boston and New York. We've always had great fun and stuff. We always got a friendly off of Boston in the lead up to games. But it's also a risk, huge risk. Our lads might be training for weeks, maybe even 2 months before you get that friendly. Boston will only be starting out. There's a difference in pace. Injuries get picked up easily, as you know. You're coming up against a team that hasn't, maybe the fitness level isn't there. Lads will be just throwing themselves around. We've had quite a few nasty injuries in the past with it. But as regards like an intramural competition, I don't know what you're saying. We'd love to do something like that. But I think the USGA's situation with the way their games start and when their season starts, and then ours as well, just never really kind of, they're not flush.
Yeah.
And there's always been, and then there's just the constraint factor on top of everything else. It's just adding another layer of competition I don't want.
I live in hope. I live in hope. I won't keep you longer now, but I have to touch on the one of your goals when you started off as chair was, of course, to develop Gaelic Park, the clubhouse there. There's a lot of people, even myself, I'm a bit unsure. Will you tell me the small history of Gaelic Park? Who has the rights to the pitch? Who has the rights to the clubhouse? And what's going on with the clubhouse?
Clubhouse is New York GAA.
So they rent, New York rents that off the MTA?
We have a lease, yeah.
And that's it. Is that a 10-year rolling lease, is it? Or how
it's a 10, yeah. But because we're there so long, we have, we're not going anywhere. They're not.
Okay.
They won't. They can't really. So it's not even a discussion to be had on it. That's us. The pitch is a shared lease, contrary to popular belief. Manhattan College can't get the lease unless we're involved in the lease. So we, so they have the lease, and then we have a sublease with them. But as regards the MTA, we're on the main lease with the college as well. So we have a decent partnership there. I have to say, you know, we work really, really well together anytime we need the pitch. I mean, we have dates, times, months or whatever. And to be very fair to them, you know, they'll always give us extra. We have tons and tons of time in the park. I mean, look at the amount of games we get played down there, and there's never a dicky board out of it.
And the schedule kind of complements each other, doesn't it? We play, Gaelic is on in the summer, college is on holiday.
Yeah, and then by the time they're back, we're happy enough with a 7:00 game in the evening, they're finished.
Yeah.
You know, so it works quite well. Regards the development.
But tell me, did the New York County Board have the full lease on that for like going back decades and lost the lease? I don't know how it happened. That's like, and I just hear so many different stories. I'm wondering, can you shed a light on it on what happened?
A row
between Donald was.
To be honest with you, I wasn't involved. I was only a punter, the same as everybody else at the time.
Okay.
It happened. Shouldn't have happened.
And Manhattan came in then and were able to get the main lease off the MTA. And how long do they have that lease for then? How long does that?
They're the same. It's a 10-year lease.
10-year lease also.
Everything in New York wouldn't go beyond the 10-year lease anyway. It works well. I mean, what we're doing and will complement what they're doing once our clubhouse is up and running and it's finished. No doubt they'll be using it as well, or they'll be looking for dates and times as well. So it'll balance itself out. So
how does the lease work? Do they have them, if it's shared, but do they have like the main say on the pitch if they needed a date that it's their call? It's a shared lease. No, we've definitive times and dates put into that. Okay. That's in the lease. So from a particular time in April right through the Sundays are ours, there's no question. If they need a Sunday, they'll work with us on it. Like I said, we have a really good partnership there. I mean, they could turn around and say no to us on the Saturday before the big game, and that would never happen. Okay.
We have it all day, for clean up and getting ready and prepping and whatnot. There's never an issue with them. I have to say they're easy. They're very easy to deal with and work with. We have a good relationship.
Okay, so tell me about the clubhouse and where the development is at there. What are the plans? Because I know going back, I just want to have this clear because I got conflicting things. There was plans for maybe a bigger clubhouse.
It got scaled back. It's now the plans that you've seen that have been up online, that virtual link that we put up. That's what it's the intention of what
board. Is that on the website, is it?
Yeah, it should be on the website, yeah. Okay. Anybody that wants can email the secretary and he'd be happy to send out the link as well. It's all over our social medias. It's beautiful. It will be phenomenal. We just have been hitting... It's my Achilles heel. It's like hitting a bloody brick wall half the time. I had to call the pile driver. He was 20 minutes from Gaelic Park to tell him turn around in the road that New York State had just completely shut down with construction. It was a freeze.
As in they broke ground last year,
he was 20 minutes from Gaelic Park with the rig.
Okay.
So needless to say, that set us back in our behinds. Then obviously with the lockdown, it's all everybody's saying, well, why didn't you start then afterwards? Why did you start there afterwards? So we didn't know whether we were coming or going for ages. I suppose one of my big concerns is the financial side of things. I don't want to be responsible for having any deficits and stuff. I need to make sure that that we can sustain ourselves and that we're not putting ourselves our backs to the wall. I won't do that. I make no bones about that. I'm not going to do that. I raised a family on a budget. I know what it is to be in a pinch, and I certainly won't have that on my conscience. Then obviously Dublin's money is going to be slow rollout. I mean, it's still there, but they put a freeze on all capital projects. If we can show that we have the cash flow to move things in phases, they'll allow that to happen. So that's where we're at the moment. I'm currently working on a plan to phase things out. We have it phased out, so I'm just waiting to phase one now, which is the piles and the slab. So patience, please. We will get this done, but I can't.
It's been on hold for the last 12 months, so I was supposed to. Yeah. Everything's. And do you have any idea when it will go ahead again?
I'm hoping to be starting this by the summer. I really am. So I mean, and then people also have to understand that the amount of people that have been supporting this project and have been working on this project, and the committee that's involved in this project, are businessmen, Irish businessmen. Mike Carty from Rosie O'Grady's and Frankie Dwyer and Eugene Brophy, they're all business people. Their lives have been just desecrated. I mean, to put pressure on them right now would be wrong also. We got to give them a chance to get their door back opened, and be able to turn a key and try and sustain themselves as well. So we're phasing this out to make it more financially feasible and viable.
Okay, so how long will construction take? Is it going to go in phase?
Honestly, that building will be up in 12 months finished.
Once it starts, 12 months.
Yeah, it's a very, very simplistic plan. Plan. I think the biggest part of the job is the plumbing.
And how much is it costing, and how much needs to be raised?
It's going to cost about 5 million, give or take. And we have 2.5 to raise. We do have promises, and we do have guarantors. So we're doing a memorial wall. It's something that we're working on a virtual on as well. So we're putting a memorial wall into Gaelic Park, and as you know, in your very short space of time in this town, it's hallowed ground. A lot of good families have come through, their grandparents, great-grandparents, all the rest of it. So there is a memorial wall going to be there where a person can have their loved one's name etched for eternity in Gaelic Park. And it's $1,000 to get the slab or whatever way it can be done, name on this memorial wall. And that has a potential fundraiser of $1 million there. As of right now, we have 350 pledges.
All right,
we're only talking about it, yes. So that's one of our big fundraisers. We just did the tickets. Obviously, because of COVID and stuff, you know, we didn't generate as much as we had anticipated, but we did quite well out of that. So there's a nice little bit of money sitting in the bank, and then, you know, we had a few dollars in there prior to that. So we have a golf outing that we're planning for late in the fall, and then we'll have to come up with another idea after that, then, Michael, to get it finished.
How much will Croke Park give, Joan?
We're getting 2.5 million, so it's 2 million from Croke Park and 500,000 from the DFA.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so right now, like I said, you know, asking them for cash now at this stage is probably not a good idea.
Yeah. And of course, when that's up and running, Joan, that will generate its own cash, won't it? It's something that's been sorely missed the last couple of years, even though you couldn't renting last year, but it would self-generate.
I think when people see the layout of it, plus I think this with the pandemic as well, we've put in sliders, so you very much have an indoor-outdoor kind of. This was prior to COVID. We had like an indoor-outdoor kind of a thing going where you could pull back the windows, and so you'd have the outdoor patio as well and stuff now. But we have the whole community is asking, like, when. There's a huge call. There is potentially huge financial kickbacks on this, and needless to say, that money obviously gets turned over and generated back into programs and stuff that we want to do going forward, and future development, and obviously support the minor board in their endeavours as well. Is it
one story, two story?
For now.
One story.
It's one story to start with. Yeah.
And you with the potential to build onto it, is it?
Yeah.
Build on top of it?
Yeah.
All right,
it's like it was a split level was the original plan, you know. But we managed to get everything we needed onto the first floor, but there is the potential to go for a second or a half story.
All right, okay. Was the original 3 stories and the foundation?
Never. I don't know. No.
What? Okay.
No. It was split level, yeah. It was like a story and a half.
All right, okay.
Because the front of the building, closer to the street side, you couldn't go up because the tracks are right there. So about 3/4 of the way down on the safety fence area, it was stepped out more onto the patio, so the track kind of turned there, so it was split there.
Okay.
But you couldn't have a 2-story above it because you have the tower above that again, the Watchman. Okay. So there was obviously an issue with that. So it was a story and a half always. So we just took the half story off.
Okay. With the potential to go ahead or to go higher again. Very good.
Yeah.
Can you just tell me, because there's been some things that I've heard around the place, that there was an option to go to Randall's Island before. What happened there? Look, we went through my own club in Nemo. We had our own place in Turner's Cross. It was one pitch, and we tried to move.
Did you realise I'm not that old?
What do you mean?
That's a long time ago.
Randall's.
I
just when going out trading there, people were saying that this and that, and I just wanted to know, like with the lease, I just want to know what's the.
I don't think there was enough of. There was a lot interested in it, but I don't think it was a fully bought into a project. And I think there was more not in favor of it. I think a lot of it had to do with the investment factor into it versus the non-ownership lease again, and the potential. I mean, it was, oh God, I can't even remember the price tag back then, what it was, but it was a pretty substantial amount of money.
Was that to buy lease a section of land?
Yeah, and you had to develop it in floodlights, and there was 2 pitches and clubhouses and a bar and bleachers and all sorts of stuff had to go into like a fully developed type of stadium and stuff. But I think the fear then was it was going into the unknown, and you know, would it be a problem down the line? I can't actually remember. I remember good fights over it, good arguments about it, but I don't know that it was ever fully vested by everybody. I don't think everybody was fully on board, and different from, we'll say, the issue that we had with potentially buying Hilltop or staying with Gaelic Park. It was a totally different situation where the majority of the people wanted to keep Gaelic Park no matter what. And that was the difference, I think.
And when was that? The Randall's Island. When was that? The 90s or?
It's, yeah, 90s, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I was a fresher to the GAA at that stage.
And it was around this time that Hilltop was being suggested as well, was it?
Hilltop was much later. It's only in the last 6 years, you know. Hey, listen, if you can find flat land, it's not going to kill us to develop.
I was just going to say, would that be something that you're going to look for as well? Maybe another pitch somewhere, and is it just get Gaelic Park up now and then look ahead to that? And
yeah, and again, it's the you know, running the clubhouse as a business and generating that revenue that we need, again, so that we're self-sustainable. And we need to be self-sustainable. And this is the thing. And look, I get the whole Hilltop thing. No one is going to tell me that I don't understand or I was against or I wasn't. I think my biggest problem with it was the financial side of it. And when you look at what happened in the last 12 months, the hole we potentially could be in, you know, and I know that's in hindsight and I get it, but I give the people that were involved a lot of credit for wanting it. I just think, just even from my own experience, and obviously you know my husband, we took a walk up there, and I mean, he just, when I get that, it's just like, you know what he's like. But I just don't think it was financially viable for us, and I think everybody's fear was the, you know, do we want to leave that kind of debt to the next generation?
what was the proposal there? Where is Hilltop in relation to the?
Is if you go
north, top of the hill, is it?
If you go north on the Deegan, you know where Ridge Hill is? Where you went skydiving?
yeah. So it's even further
across the road from it and back.
All right, okay. So you're getting you're getting further away for the likes of me in Queens. That if that went up there, that it's even further away. Because I know living in Sunnyside, it used to take me 75 minutes to get up to Gaelic Park. I'm a bit closer now, but yeah, so that would have been even further away again.
You would have had to have a car, yeah.
Just the Gaelic Park. I could put up a link. I'll put up a link to the plan. But can you just tell me off the top of your head what will it be? A clubhouse, a couple of changing rooms. What's going to go in there? And
two
the changing rooms will stay.
The two in the back stay because they're college owned. Okay. Those two. Right. Then our two new, brand new, state of the art doctor's room. Small little area for weights to start off with, and then you have your dance hall, bar, kitchen, coffee station, outdoor facility, patio, the memorial wall. Yeah, it's going to be done where, you know, you can have upwards of 400 people at a dinner dance.
Okay.
And we'd be hoping to have, you know, functions there 4 out of the 7 nights a week that would be a function of sorts. And then obviously it's available the other nights then to, you know, clubs for meetings. There's a office space and stuff there where, you know, Excellent. Club could have a meeting, or somebody needed, if the community needed to use the facility for whatever reasons, that it's there and it's available to be used.
Okay. And
the whole thing is that it's a fully functional community orientated base. And it's ours, it's Irish, it's ours. It belongs to the Irish diaspora, it belongs to the Irish Americans, it belongs to us. And it's there for the community as well, you know, to use when we're not using it.
Mm. So Joan, so a lot of fundraising has gone on here the last couple of years. A lot of people came over from Ireland, fundraised here, brought money home for projects at home. You said that you might impose a levy on that sort of fundraising going on.
It's not us that's going to impose it. We've brought this to the attention of Central Council. We've discussed this at length. It's USGA as well. You know, counties are coming in here and it is like cash cow. There's no recognition of our board. There's no recognition of us, GPA included. And it's okay to take money out of here. And you offer crumbs. Oh, we'll send you 2 all-star players there and they'll spend an hour coaching your kids. And that's okay. We're just going to take $500,000 out of a function downtown. No, it's over. It's done. We're not, we're tired. We're tired. New York's first. You know, New York is first, and we have to look after ourselves. And if they are coming out here and they do want to fundraise, they should enter into negotiation with us, and a percentage of that funding should be given back to our board to put where we feel it's needed to go. And it should be given back to the board.
Okay.
And I think that is pretty much a discussion that's been had. And it's a discussion that USGA and New York have had with counties. There will be an imposed percentage agreed upon with counties that they should recognise us.
And can you enforce that at a county level, or do you have to go through Congress, through the GA?
No, it would probably be. You would hope that there'd be an agreement of sorts made. I don't know if you can impose a rule on a monetary level, but it's respect. It's like us going home and standing at home, walking in the door of Cork City and doing a massive fundraiser. Yeah, we're here. We take it out and we take it all the way back to New York, and you're in the middle of building your own facility in Park Equity and doing the money, and you're killing yourselves trying to make ends meet there and get your facility going. We're trying to do the same here. You know, we wouldn't do it to another county. You know,
Okay.
Coming in here to New York. I mean, we'd like the people. Like, I'm not saying anything. I support my own all the time. Like, I mean, I've no problem buying a ticket. I've no problem supporting Kerry if they were doing a fundraiser, or my own club even at home. I'd support them. But taking it away from the county here, taking away from our kids and our future and our development, that's where lies my concern with it. And you know, it's become it's just like, we need to raise $500,000. Let's just go to New York.
Okay. And do you think, is it enforceable? Can that be enforced?
Yeah, I think the counties are. I think they actually are starting to hear, and they feel it. And right now, you're living in New York. Anyone who would try and come in and raise money in New York right now, I would say shame on you. You know, please give the people here an opportunity to regain their footing, to regain their own livelihoods, and to get back on our feet, and give us a chance to breathe here. And we'll go back to the table then. But please give us some time for the foreseeable future. New York got hit harder than most. And you know that, you see that. Look at the amount of businesses that are going to go under. And we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring here. So for the foreseeable future, we'd be pleading not to come here.
Okay. Last question. You mentioned Larry McCarthy went through you're following the footsteps of Larry McCarthy, Joan. He was a county chair here before. When your tenure is up, will we see you going for GAA president?
One-way ticket to Charbert. 100%. Job done. Done.
No problem. Joan,
I will just become a spectator and a proud supporter of my little club at home, and I'll travel back to New York and support them no matter what.
No problem.
That is it. Me done.
Joan, thanks for your time. I really appreciate your honesty and your forthrightness. Thanks very much for coming on the show.
Anytime. Talk to you soon, Pet.
Why, Santi, my dear Annie.
And that's all for this week. Let us know what you think by leaving us a comment on Facebook, Instagram or Twitter at The Long Haul Podcast. Please rate and review the show. This will ensure that we can get even more podcasts to you in the future. Like last year, we will have a special New York Club Championship preview podcast in a few weeks' time, as well as further coverage of this year's games. You can listen or watch all of our previous podcasts on thelonghaulpodcast.com, including that controversial episode with former Kerry County Board Chairman Pat the Bag O'Sullivan, which we spoke about earlier. A video of the Gaelic Park Clubhouse plans will be shown next for those watching on video, and there will also be links to the video on our social media streams.
Why, Santi, my dear Annie. Oh, you New York girls, can you dance the polka? And when we got inside the house, the drinks were passed around. The liquor was so awful strong, my head went round.